Welcome, everybody, and thank you. We've got some lovely people who've joined us, and just to let you know, as usual, already someone's posed a question, which is good. There are going to be a lot of questions, I think, for you, Gareth, about financial issues, so we will be talking about that generally. But before I do that, Alison, could you just briefly introduce yourself for anybody who might not have seen you as a panelist here before?
Okay. Hello everyone, nice to meet you, even if it is virtually at the moment. My name is Alison Jameson and I'm the owner of a PR company based in Edinburgh called AJC 93. The 93 is relevant because that was the year that we started, so possibly some of you might not have even have been born then, which is quite scary. But I've been in the industry for a very long time, started off as a hairdresser, worked in London with Wella and Trevor Sorby, and then returned to my native Scotland to start up my own business, and have been doing that ever since. And we work with a wide variety of clients, from events to standalone salons and product companies. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Alison. Now, Gareth, obviously I'm going to welcome you as a colleague of yours at Good Salon Guide. We're hosting this event, one of many we've hosted, but Gareth, you are in charge of the Good Salon Guide, as it were. So if you tell us a little bit about you and the guide.
Yeah, so obviously welcome everybody, and I can see there are some members and also some non-members with us, and this webinar forms part of our support, not just to the members actually, but to the industry as a whole, to what's going on with COVID and the situation that just seems to keep on giving, and not really in a particularly good way. So we're really pleased that we can help share some of our knowledge and our time and experience to help get us all through this, because we will get through it. It doesn't feel like it right now, I would say, but we will all get through this, and we're really proud to be supporting you, as we have been for 27 odd years.
Thanks, Gareth. Well, I think really we might as well start with a question from Damien, because I think a lot of people, I've got my notes here on things we were going to cover, but can we just address first of all, and I think this is one for you, Gareth, I'm sure you've got some information too, Alison, the furlough scheme and how it's working this time round. I mean, specifically, Damien said, do I have to get employees to agree to new furlough, i.e. sign a letter regarding the furlough like last time? Can you tell us a little bit about how the furlough is working this time, Gareth?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a really good question, Damien. So the furlough scheme was being wound down. And if anybody still had employees who were furloughed some of the time or all of the time, you'll recall that up to the end of October, the employer was paying an ever increasing amount of the wages of the employee, plus the national insurance and the auto enrolment pension contribution.
Right.
However, from the beginning of November, we've flipped back to the situation in April, which is that the employer can claim 80% of the employee's wages, and those wages are those which were calculated on the 30th of October.
Right.
And so that's quite important, because that will include some people in the new furlough scheme that were excluded previously. It may also exclude people who no longer are with you. But the employer still needs to pay the national insurance contributions and the auto enrolment pension of everybody that's furloughed.
Right.
Everybody that you want to furlough from last Thursday when you closed, you will need to write to with the furlough letter, because this is an employment matter. And so you absolutely need to write to them again, giving them the dates that they are furloughed and confirmation of the amounts of money that they're going to receive. And on our website, in the coronavirus hub, we have those letters that you can use. But of course, as ever with these things, if you want to give us a buzz and we can talk through the detail of those with you, please do. I think it's also noteworthy that the furlough scheme now runs until the end of March 21. So I think that indicates to us perhaps that certain areas may not be fully open once we return to work on Thursday, the 3rd. Was that the 4th?
Third.
Yeah, third.
Third. There's huge confusion with that.
There was confusion, and we can confirm that, Gareth, if you wouldn't mind doing that. Can you just categorically confirm now, having dealt with the relevant bodies, what is the return date?
So the return to work date that you can open from is Thursday, the 3rd of December.
Right. Okay, thank you.
This is, so that information comes from the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills. It is not helped by MPs giving a different opinion to their constituents. And there's masses on the internet, which I'm sure loads of us have seen, where an MP says, no, you can open from Wednesday morning the 2nd. That is not the case.
Okay.
It may be that on Wednesday the 2nd, the goalposts are moved again, because they do tend to move quite a lot at the moment.
But as of now,
as it stands now, I would advise that you're booking clients in from whatever time you wish on Thursday, the 3rd of December.
Right.
I wouldn't worry about whether there's going to be a second or third lockdown, or whether your area might come out of it differently, or different services may or may not be allowed. I think we've got to just go with the information that we have today.
Okay.
And yeah, sorry, Claire, go on.
That was going to be my next question, because I think we haven't had a question about that, but I know that's a concern. I was going to ask Alison, because I know she works with a lot of very large salons. What are salons doing now? I mean, Gareth has said, which is good advice, we've got to go on the pretext that they are going to be open, because we want to talk about preparing ourselves for December. Yeah. So Alison, the salons you work with, I know you work with Rainbow Room, very big group. Well, then actually in Scotland, it's slightly different, but your knowledge of salons at the moment that you advise and work with, are you saying get ready for a busy December as if we're going with that date?
Yes, we are, because I think the more prepared you are, the better. But one thing that I would say to people is that we've had a really rough time of it this year. And, coming back from lockdown, it was very intense for everyone. They were working long hours, appointments were taking longer. There was a lot of extra pressure put on businesses and the team. And I think you need to use this month wisely. I think you need to have a little bit of self-care and, look after yourself, take maybe a bit of time out. You might have had a week's holiday at this time. So kind of look at it like, I'm staying away from work or anything like that for a week. I'm going to clear my head. I'm going to come back and then put a plan into action. And obviously, I think we all learned lots of good lessons from the first, when we came back from the first lockdown. There was a lot of elements like phone bookings or online bookings. What's the best thing to do? How much longer do we need for an appointment time? I think, we've gone through all the teething problems. Right. So hopefully coming back from this lockdown should be a lot smoother. I think, we will be busy, but I don't expect it to be the craziness that there was after the first lockdown. Right,
you don't. I think it's interesting you say there, Alison, about the self-care thing. And I think people need, there's this huge pressure that people probably feel, I've got to keep going, I've got to drive myself. But Gareth and I was saying, and talking to members, generally the mood of the nation is very different this time round. I mean, you'll see that with the, thank God, fewer invitations to have Zoom calls and stuff, because people aren't so upbeat and buoyant about it. They're very disconsolate. And I think what you say is sometimes maybe you have to give in to that, accept it, and have a little bit of time to regroup, and then, you know, get yourself together. Now, Alison, apart from what you were saying, learning from lessons and getting those bookings in, when you talk about preparing, you know, what else, and then I'll come to Gareth with this, what else should salon owners use these few weeks to do when you talk about preparing? You know, what else can they do?
I think that one of the obvious things is to do any team training or staff training that you want to do. I think that's really important. And again, you know, we're all working in a different way. Everyone's had to pivot their businesses and to work to really fit in with what's going on in the world at the moment. So, you know, have they noticed over the past few months that they've been open that there's a trend towards anything, or do they feel that they need to up their customer care? I think another big thing to take into consideration is that we're coming up for Christmas.
Yeah.
And, you know, how do we still give clients a great Christmas hair experience? You know, I think that's really, really important. And as is giving the clients a great experience with PPE, you know, in play. But I do think the whole Christmas thing's really, really important to, you know, we've got to have something to look forward to. And I think that's part of the problem. There's not always a lot to look forward to. So by, you know, celebrating Christmas in the salon with your team, with the clients, making the clients feel that, you know, this is a great experience. I'm so glad I made the appointment. I think that's really important.
It's something to look forward to. And maybe when they come back, the salon is looking, I mean, a lot of people in their real life are putting their trees up now, and who can blame them if it gives them a bit of cheer? It really doesn't matter. Tradition kind of goes out the window. So maybe dress the salon, make it, I think there's a temptation to think, I just won't bother this year. But I think if you're in business, that will lift your clients, some great decorations. And I was going to say things like, before I come to Gareth, you know, there's a chance to sell retail at the moment as well. So you should be putting your Christmas boxes, get onto your suppliers. If you can't shoot the imagery, get the stock pictures, salons of, you know, your Christmas box sets from all your, and let people know, because my big thing is that it's going to be very difficult to source Christmas gifts this year. And Amazon have already said delivery is going to be a complete nightmare. So if you can purchase from your salon when you go back in salon, make clients aware that there'll be an incredible range, not just gift vouchers, but of box sets and stuff. So they can buy gifts in salon, or you can mail out, you know, during the lockdown. It gets a bit of cash in the tills. Would you add anything to that, Gareth, in terms of, you know, this build up towards Christmas and making Christmas still very special?
I think what I'd add is probably that both staff and clients are fairly fed up now with coronavirus and lockdown, and exactly as you said, that positivity and that, for want of a better description, blitz spirit that we had during March, April, May is gone now. And I think it's down to you as the salon owner to firstly lift your staff and really lead from the front with positivity, with absolutely being on top of everything that's going on, and to make sure that when they do return to work on the 3rd of December, that they're absolutely ready to do so. And of course, we know a lot more now than we did back when we opened in July. We know how it is to work in PPE. We're no longer scared of it. Clients, likewise, we know that they're going to come into the salon. But I do think that this 3 week or 3.5 weeks we've got remaining, that we're going to see staff really drop their heads, and we're really going to see their mental health suffer in a big way. And our own also, I would say. But I think now more than ever, we need to be looking out for our staff. And to make sure that then when we all do return to work, everybody is absolutely ready to go, because although it won't be crazy busy July, it will still be December.
Yeah.
I'm looking back to something that, do you remember we did one of these lovely webinars, which I hugely enjoyed before, and we had, correct me if I'm wrong, Gareth, because you know, Salve from Academy Salons.
That's right, Salve Muley from Academy.
Yeah, and he made a really good point, and I'm really conscious about that, particularly in the wake of what Joe was saying, who, you know, I'm so sad can't be here. I think he made a great point that during their lockdown, you know, it's keeping in touch with clients as well. Now, we all assume, and obviously I'm going to turn to you on this, Alison, about social media, and it is hugely important, but I never forget him saying that they were taking the time just to give a little phone call to some of their elderly clients or older clients, because we were discussing with, I was discussing with a lovely salon owner, Liz Dunn, from Barnet and Bell, and she was saying yesterday that for a lot of clients, you know, who might live on their own, going into the salon each week is the highlight of their week, you know, because it's a great pampering, you become great friends with people. Hairdressers are innately warm, giving people, and that interaction is important. So I know we get very carried away with social media, and that's great, but I never forget South was saying when he did make those calls, you know, it's just great to touch base if you've got time. And you could task some of your staff with that, because cliche as it might be, often if you're feeling really down and you lift somebody else's spirits, you're doing a positive thing. Yeah, of course you feel better. It's just nice. But I mean, we have to address it, Alison. And I know I know Gareth wants to talk a bit more about some financial issues, which are going to be hugely important. But while we're on this topic, staying engaged with the customers. Well, we could talk to them, the ones we know that aren't on socials.
Yes.
But Alison, back to the social media, I mean, what is it that we should be? I think when I advise my clients, and I had a chat with a client yesterday, the worst thing you can do is to have a static non-presence.
Nothing happening.
Disaster. You know, you've got to, it won't be as easy. There won't be pictures of great hairdos coming out, but you have got to have a consistent flow of positivity, hopefully, and just let them know what you're up to. I suggested to my particular salon yesterday that, you know, what they're doing away from the salon to keep the wheels turning for when they come back. What would you add to that, Alison, about socials?
I think if they feel comfortable, I think using video is a really strong way for the salon owner, and I've seen some salons use all their team to do consistent little video messages, you know, we miss you, we're looking forward to welcoming you back, this is what we're doing. And you can show them putting up the Christmas decorations or getting the salon ready for clients coming back. You know, I think in any case, it's always an informed client is a happy client because they know what's happening. You know, you can start putting up when you decide to open, okay, you might trade for an extra day and work on shifts, or you might open longer hours. So, you know, keeping clients informed about what your plans are. And I think, you know, everyone tends to use Instagram at the moment, but remember, not all your clients are on Instagram, not all are on Facebook. Some are on email, so an e-shot's a good way. And you can get a lot of information out on an e-shot. One client that I know of, they're doing a Christmas shopping day on Zoom.
We're doing that. I was just going to say, do you know what, Alison? That was my next going to be. We're going to be doing that with a client. But bear in mind one thing, which I don't know what you'd say, because remember we're in England. You've got to be careful how many people you feature on this. So make sure you can't all pile into the salon to do it that way. In different Zoom. We discussed that. The other thing about that is I think the hair community, and also, you know, everybody, congratulations, by the way, to those people that won awards in last night's salon business, because that was an event where for the first time it was done online, wasn't it? A big award ceremony. And it was brilliant. It shows how successful doing an event via digital format can be. Have you got anything to add to that, Gareth, about, you know, ways of making sure that you're communicating via whatever format. I mean, at Good Salon Guide, we've now got 2 platforms, haven't we? So we're intending to keep up our posting and our engagement.
I think that's right. I think you've got to just communicate with your clients in the way they want to be communicated with, not the way that you want or would prefer to do it. You know, I think we can all fall into this very efficient, post it on social media, job done, tick, let's go and get a cup of tea. Whereas I totally agree with Sal from Academy's view of the importance of phoning a client. And that has the knock-on impact, exactly as you said, Claire, of you remaining engaged with your staff and to keep them thinking about the business. And you know, the furlough scheme is flexible enough that you can decide at the end of the period, just before you claim, how many days that you're going to be claiming.
Oh, I see. Now, can you just explain that a little bit more, Gareth? Because is that because you've tasked somebody to do? Well,
the furlough scheme, you know, strictly speaking, the furlough scheme, you're supposed to say to an employee, you're furloughed, for example, 4 days per week, and you're working 1.
Right.
But the reality of the scheme is you don't put your claim in until the month end.
Right.
So that means it does allow us some small flexibility if the employee is willing.
Right.
For them to work maybe 2 days 1 week and none the next week.
That's a very valid point, because I think I've heard salon owners ask about how that will work. If they're tasking the staff to do some things, does that impact? And you've just explained that.
I think I'd add also, there's no reason why you as the owner director can't also be furloughed.
Right.
As long as you're not working whilst you're furloughed. So you can do training, of course, everybody can do training whilst furloughed, but you know, don't miss that opportunity to furlough yourself, as long as you then don't break the rules and work.
Okay. While I noticed there's a note here, can you mention, when we're back to finances, you wanted to talk a little bit about local grants. We're on to grants now, bounce back loans.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is great news for people. They might not be aware of it. Do you want to just talk us briefly through those? Sure.
So again, cast our minds back to the first lockdown. Most salons received £10,000 from their local council based on their rateable value. The level of support available this time is much lower. And for most salons, you can claim £1,500 per 3-week period that you're forced to close by government order.
Right.
You apply through your local council's website, and some of them are very organised and have already got the forms up for us to claim through. Others, less so. But it does look like you have to put the claim in yourself to request the money, rather than the council coming to you and saying, here's money that we owe you.
Right.
That's quite an important difference to the first scheme. So don't miss out on that £1,500. It's free, as it were. It does the problem with this is our lockdown is longer than 3 weeks. And so you would only get it once for this particular term. I think the other important one to mention is that if you haven't applied for a bounce back loan, which is based on your turnover, they've extended the application process. You do so through your bank, and it's up £50,000. And I totally understand the mentality where people say, I don't want to get myself into debt. I totally agree with that. However, this money, you don't have to spend it, but you might need it.
Ah, right.
So you could just take the money from the bank, put it in a savings account, and then repay it once it starts the repayment. You can repay it in full with no penalty.
Right.
before you start accruing any interest on it.
Okay. That's good to know.
And so I would, I would suggest that just for emergencies, that's quite useful to have that buffer.
I think it would be a sort of stress buster as well. It's kind of comfortable to know because it's stressful enough. It's there, and it's good to know. I mean, just to ask our participants, please. I know a lot of people really do look to us to, Neil. He's just added, thank you, Neil. Always nice. He says that in the southwest, which is kind of your neck of the woods, Gareth, it's 1,333 the grant, and it's £2,000 depending on rateable value. So
it's all to do with this rateable value. It's
right.
all to do with the rateable value of your salon.
Right.
You don't have to be paying rates. You could have full small business rates relief.
Right.
But it's that rateable value.
Right. And Neil adds that that's for 4 weeks. I mean, it's useful to get this. I mean, as you say, Gareth, before we move on to another important point, which I think we need to address, if people have got questions on, anything to do with grants, bounce back loans, things like that, I mean, they're welcome to call and get some advice on a personal, based on their particular area, because obviously we're talking generally here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so the importance, Alison and Gareth, another note we've made that I'm sure people will be concerned to know. When you do go back to work, I mean, we're going back in the full PPE, but oh God, there's been so much movement in the last two days, not only on potentially this 90% effective vaccine, which is fantastic, but the move to do more mass testing as was trialled in Liverpool. So Gareth, we're talking about social distancing being important because if a member of your team does test positive, are you saying then if the team have adhered to PPE and social distancing, there's no need for them to self-isolate? No.
So this is something that is sort of passing on the experience of our members,
right,
who've had to close, whether they're in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, wherever. And it's really worth, I think, when everybody returns to work, reiterating this.
Yeah.
Firstly, track and trace don't look at the wearing of PPE in a salon. They don't look at that as a mitigating factor at all, as to whether you're going to have to self-isolate or close the salon should one of your team members test positive.
Right.
Clearly there's a contradiction there, that we're forced to wear the PPE, but then they don't take it into any consideration. I think all I can say to that is way over our pay grade. We just have to do as we're told. However ridiculous some of the rules may be, but we've seen several cases where salons have been forced to close because staff have not socially distanced in the staff room. And an example would be maybe the colour bar or the tea, the colour bar is in the staff room and everybody is there chatting, they're close, they are not 2 meters apart and they're there for some time.
Right.
And my advice with this really would be no staff room, unless it's very large.
Just do away with the staff room.
One person in there at any one time.
Yeah, I think the guidelines have to be quite strict there.
Right. What about when they want to take their lunch then?
They either need to do it individually in the staff room.
Yeah. On a rota or whatever.
On a rota, or they need to
go outside,
sit in their car if they drove to work.
Yeah.
And it's not ideal at all because of course the socializing, chatting, sharing is an important part of our industry and why we love it so much. But I just think it's not worth the risk. And that's why I think, on return to work, reassess your risk assessment. look at the areas where you think.
That's a good
actually,
point. Is that something, Gareth, that you salon owners could start looking at that, but in this 3-week period before they go back, you know, take a second look at that?
I would strongly advise
do
it.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I notice in my area, do you think, you know, during when we open again, the kind of checks on salons and the kind of policing, I know we have things called COVID stewards and so on, do you do you think, in high-vis jackets, do you think that the policing of salons and along with all other businesses is going to be more intense this time? Will there be a greater, so that if you are bending the rules, be aware you might get a spot check visit?
Or
Gareth, do you think that's going to be stepped up?
Firstly, I hope so,
Right.
because everybody on this call has walked down their local high street and seen salons, often barbers, I'm afraid to say, where either no PPE is being worn, or partial PPE is being worn, so just a mask and nothing else, for example.
Yeah.
The guys and girls who are doing this properly, who are spending the money, who are really keeping their staff and clients safe, we should welcome more inspections, because we've got nothing to fear. And it reiterates that our premises is COVID secure.
Yeah.
And that gives clients confidence to keep coming in. And I've said this a lot on these calls, but if anybody is a member of Good Salon Guide and they haven't got their COVID aware certification, please just let me know. It costs you nothing. It's part of your membership, and it is just reinforcing to the public that you've gone those extra steps.
Well, it's reinforcing and it's very reassuring.
Yeah. From a client perspective, really reassuring. And, you know, I think to get the client confidence to come back to the salon is really, really important. Because, you know, if you've been out and you go somewhere, even if it's for a coffee, you know, when you were allowed out for a coffee, but, you know, if it's for a coffee and it's not clean and they're not wearing a mask and that, you know, and you just think, I won't go back here. So, and we're in exactly the same boat.
But that brings me to a very good point, both of you. Correct me if I'm wrong. This did elicit, and I'm sure maybe some of our participants might have some views to share on this. I think it was the National Hairdressers Federation posted up recently how incredibly well we were praised for doing as an industry. Fantastic, fantastic, which is great to celebrate that, as Gareth said, there are people out there doing it well, so you need not fear inspection. But as a lot of hair people said, if we're doing it so brilliantly and we've won this praise, there was a bit of a knockback and people saying, why the hell have we got to close again? And I think there was quite a lot of anger about that on the one hand, we're being praised for doing something superbly, but it's not really benefited us. What are your views on that?
As Liz has just said, you know, through the Hairdressing Council, Sage released the figures that the R rate in salons, and that's both hair and beauty, was way lower than the general community.
Yeah.
And absolutely, Claire, it really does feel like our sector is being punished.
I think a lot of salon owners feel that.
Like, and I think that is reflected in the mood of the moment. You know, people are thinking, well, you know, on one hand, you're telling us we're doing really well. And then on the other hand, we're having to close. But we know for people's mental health, for this, just the contact with other people, that how important salon is within the community. So you know, it's kind of like, you say we're being told how well we're doing on one hand, and then on the other,
closed. And I knew this would elicit a response. Thank you, David Hyde. We always appreciate some feedback. It's nice to not feel up here alone. Thank you for that. He said, I knew people felt this. You could see this from the kind of hair groups. Well said. We were incredibly careful, and we do feel that we shouldn't have had to close. And I do think we need to acknowledge that people feel that way. But like everything, we acknowledge it. It sucks. But we have to be positive and move on. But great that we have won that, you know, incredible recommendation, you know, endorsement that we were doing it right generally. I think that's something to celebrate as an industry. Just to touch back, and I like to just always thank people for their really helpful comments. Could help other people. Neil has come back and said, you know, it's interesting with the grant from the councils, Gareth. Some councils aren't actually getting the grants applications available right now. So don't be deterred. If you go to a website, Neil is saying that his council is going to be the end of this week. So if the application isn't there now, it does not mean it's not coming. It's best.
Keep going back. It will come because it's money from central government.
Yeah, so that's a positive. Yeah, so we've talked about PPE and we've talked about planning for you know, what's coming.
I think one thing talking of PPE, is the perennial problem during lockdown of stylists employed by us who are then doing home hairdressing. You know, this is becoming more and more of a problem, and I'm, you know, I've seen, you know, while the salons have been open, I've had so many calls from owners asking what they should do about staff who are doing clients on the quiet at home, and who
in their homes, in the clients' homes, or in the stylists' homes?
No, in the clients' homes.
Right.
And I know that this is continuing during this lockdown. You know, just a quick surf of the internet and you'll see comments from people, plenty. So again, I think this is something that if you become aware of one of your stylists who is either advertising themselves to do home hairdressing during lockdown, or you've got evidence that they're doing so, whether that's from social media or WhatsApp groups, I really think that you need to take strong action with them. You know, if they're an employee, that should include disciplinary action, because they are putting everybody's futures at risk. And there's a massive health issue here as well, about going into people's houses and transmitting COVID or bringing it with you and everything else. So if they're employed, I really do think you need to take strong action, and that could include disciplinary action. And there's an argument that actually doing this sort of thing would pass the bar for gross misconduct, which would then be dismissal with no notice. I'm not sure if any of the panelists have got a view on that, or got any experience, and whether you have anything you want to add to that, Claire and Alison.
Well, no. I'd ask. Sorry, Alison. Can I just?
You go, Claire.
Yes, thanks, Alison. I just want to. I've got another comment come up here, but I just want to touch quickly, Gareth. You say if it's an employed stylist, obviously then there's disciplinary, and I know we've probably got information on that on the website as well, on the hub. What about if that person rents a chair from you?
Okay.
So they're not an employed stylist, but they're connected with your business very much. Can you just, before Alison has her point, can you just reference, would you recommend the same course of action?
Okay, so you can't take disciplinary action against somebody who's not an employee.
Yeah.
However, you can decide to terminate their chair or space rental agreement. Your reputation as the salon is at risk, because the clients don't know or care whether their stylist or therapist is employed or self-employed. Their perception is always that they just work at your salon.
Yeah.
The track and trace people don't care whether they are employed or self-employed when they shut you down. They just say they work on this premises.
Right.
So
okay.
I think if they are self-employed, you can still also take strong action.
Yeah.
You know, but that's within their right as somebody self-employed to work.
Okay, but Neil mentions, just before I come to you, Alison, Neil says that in his NHF contracts for employed people, they actually state that your team cannot do hairdressing outside of the salon. Sorry, Alison, do you want to come in on
No,
that?
no, I'm just going to say that I think this is maybe another job that salon owners could look at, was making sure that they had all their contracts of employment, you know, all their agreements, you know, are fully up to date. And it might possibly be a good time to do some one-to-ones with their team while they're off, going back over the contracts and why these points are so important, especially at this time.
Yeah, very important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think just from a rather boring employment law point of view, if you want to change somebody's terms and conditions of employment, you need to give them a month's notice.
Right.
So, you know, I totally accept that most contracts, and I know the NHF ones are particularly good, have got this section in there that you shouldn't be doing any hairdressing outside of the salon.
Yeah.
I don't actually think you need a specific clause in a hairdressing employment contract that says you shouldn't, because the common law doesn't exist, but it's understood that you should be working only in the salon and you should be benefiting the salon with all of your endeavors.
Yeah.
However, having a clause like that in your contracts makes it oh so much easier to deal with these problems, as Steve at HaHa, who I know is on the call, has recently found out. You know, it makes it so much easier if you've got these specific clauses. So spend the time now, get those clauses in.
I mean, I'm glad we touched on this because it's very important, and you know, we're a professional industry, and Caroline has added, and I can take her point, that she just wouldn't stand for anyone doing hairdressing during the lockdown. I think we have to be very firm about it because it's jeopardizing, you know, the careers and the futures of so many businesses. So you know, we need to have a firm approach on that, don't we? You mentioned Steve from HaHa, and it's really lovely that Steve has said to you, Gareth, and I think I'd like to echo this, that thank you to you and your team, so I'll take that as me, for your constant no, and Jodie and the fantastic group of people we genuinely have. Yeah, it's great that we can give the support. I think I work with a lot of young hairdressers, and I think, you know, it's hard for me because I know everybody has mental anxiety, but unfortunately it seems with young people, lockdown has a really, really detrimental effect. And, you know, Steve's saying as a training provider, he's got concerns that it's, you know, you work incredibly hard to secure apprenticeships. And, you know, we need to hope that the industry has faith that we'll come through this. We need to continue. And I'm going to ask you about this, Alison. You know, it's so vital. The youth are our future. And we have such an incredibly brilliant industry in Britain in terms of creativity and kind of avant-garde work. And it's the young people, I think, a lot that drive this. You know, what would you say about investing in the future, taking care of your young apprentices? It's heartbreaking to see how upset they are.
It's so important. And then, you know, you think that an apprentice may have started maybe this time last year, and then all of a sudden come March, everything changed for them. And unless the salon was very good at motivating people and putting on education and keeping that training going via online, it could have just flatlined for them. And then it's been very difficult to pick it up again for a short period of time when everything's not gone back to how it should be for them. So, you know, I think it is very, very difficult to keep that generation motivated and engaged. I think we're fairly lucky that, you know, the publications, Hairdresser Journal, Concept Hair, Creative Head, Salon Business, you know, Professional Hairdresser, all of the publications do focus on younger people and the next generation. And they see that as being very, very important. So I think from that respect, all of the online things that everyone's doing is really, really important.
I was going to say that.
It's either your manager or your salon owner motivating the apprentice if they're not self-motivated. And that can be the tricky part, you know. How does someone that's maybe 17 understand the mechanics of self-motivating? It can be really
I work with a great training organisation, and they've got a very inspirational tutor there, and one thing she did, which was brilliant, you know, she's very interesting to talk to, and she was finding that, you know, some days with depression, anxiety, some of the younger people just can't get themselves out of bed. So what she did was come up with, you know, just simple steps like, today, get your makeup on, today, put a pretty top on, you know, achieve something. Some days you have to just give into it, and anybody who's had those sort of situations understands that. But she sort of began to sort of take it away from hair learning, whereas they love online learning, young people. She was just having like Zoom dinner parties, you know, where fantastic Friday evening, you get a takeout, you all sit round, don't talk hair necessarily, just engage, have a laugh, have a giggle, you all know each other. And she said, you know, didn't even, the idea was that they might talk about hair, but in the end they didn't, and it was brilliant. And, you know, it's just a simple idea, and well done, Donna, because, that's just thinking like that, thinking about just bringing people together to try and do something that we used to take for granted.
Because the thing would be, oh, let's go out for a drink after work, or let's go for something to eat after work. You don't have that anymore, you know, so it's kind of trying to recreate circumstances and make it work for now.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, all you know, all praise and all credit to the people in our industry who are still, I mean, training centres, let's just be clear about that, can open at the moment. Hair training centres can open, they can't work on live models. But, you know, amazing work being done by training centres across the country. Very difficult times. So really we need to think of the future. Gareth, you'd like to mention redundancies, so over to you on that.
So not such a positive topic. But I think it's worth mentioning, and Caroline, I will come and answer your question in just 2 seconds.
Ask that,
So if you need to make somebody redundant, there's a strong argument to say that now is a very good time to do so. And the reason for that is because during their notice period, you are able to furlough them. And therefore, their notice is only going to cost you 80%. Sorry, only going to cost you 20%, not 100%. And I think as we all look and assess our businesses during these difficult times, if you've got anybody in your team that you are not completely sure about, and you're not thinking, and you're thinking, are they a good fit for my business? Are they the right person for me? Are they share my view on where we're going to take things? Actually, now is maybe the time for them to move on, and for you to take those difficult decisions. There are very strict steps that you need to take to make somebody redundant. I'm not going to go in there. There's a webinar on that
in itself.
I mean, there's a lifetime. There's people who just do that. But if you are thinking of making anybody redundant, please just reach out, and we're very happy to help with advice and also the letters. Caroline, you asked if a member of the team gets COVID and kept their PPE on and distanced themselves from staff members, can the salon stay open? So the answer to that is the only people that tell you to close the salon are track and trace. Nobody else. The wearing of PPE in the salon, they don't look at that when they're making their decision as to whether they feel close contact has occurred. But they would speak to lots of individuals to build a picture as to whether they feel that close contact has occurred. And the other question you've got, a really valid one, is who is it that contacts the clients to tell them that there's been a positive test at the salon? Now, originally, when Track and Trace was launched, they made it very clear that they were the only people that should be contacting clients in order to inform them that there was a risk of coronavirus. However, we've heard numerous stories in the last couple of weeks where salons have been requested to contact their clients. And I'm really uncomfortable with that. I don't think it is your job as the salon owner to be phoning a client and saying, there is a risk that you've contracted coronavirus from somebody in my business. I think there's a very good commercial reason that you don't want to have to make that phone call. I think there's a very good health reason you don't want to make that phone call, because you don't know as much as Track and Trace about what's happened. So there is a GDPR, it's allowed under GDPR for you to release those details of clients to Track and Trace and Track and Trace alone. But I think that's for them to do.
Yeah. You don't want to get engaged in the kind of conversation that could result from that. It's just not somewhere you need to be. Can I just move on? And I've got an idea. Maybe Alison will have an idea. David says, David Hyde, that, you know, obviously we won't be having Christmas parties this year, and that is a great shame, because it's a great thing for salons. A lot of salons I've worked with, David, in my lengthy career, often will have the Christmas party in the new year, because they're too busy, quite honestly, doing clients. I'm sure you've encountered that, Alison. So that's a thought that perhaps you could delay it, David. And I know they're getting a bit tiresome, but we've seen last night with the salon business party, you know, online, digital, it's not the same, but you can send out, like they did last night, you know, you can get a great sort of hamper, deliver a bottle of fizz to your guys, and all kind of join round the camera, and it's something. It's that, or perhaps think about, you know, because you're going to be busy, pushing it back. Is that familiar to you, Alison, that a lot of salons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of talk of Zoom parties and doing exactly as they did last night, you know, having drinks. I think that it's like one of those things, it's not going to happen. So you have to put a little bit of work into making it happen. But then I think that's, you know, that's good. That can be part of the fun of it, you know, decorations, drinks, nibbles, whatever. You know?
And it's a rare chance, maybe, because often Christmas, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but when you have the Christmas party, you don't tend to bring partners. But at least when you're at home, you know, the rest of the family can sort of see your
join in as well.
Your work colleagues, see what you actually do. And I'm glad you like that answer, David, and thanks very much for saying that. Sounds good. I think it sounds jolly good, and I'm sure we'll be having a GSG Christmas party, and you're invited, Alison.
Yeah, the only drink is gin.
Yeah, so can I just come to both of you? I know, Gareth, that, you know, going back to a lot of the things that it was important for us to tackle because you're fielding a lot of calls. Is there anything that we haven't covered, you know, that, you know, members have been contacting you about and are concerned about, maybe on the financial side of things? Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think there's a couple. So firstly is workload on return in December. So I think salons are understandably concerned about their experience from the end of lockdown 1.0, which was that July was absolutely crazy busy, and then August was absolutely the worst month that many salons have ever had. Not all salons, but you know, we were getting a lot of feedback from salons saying August was truly terrible. I think there are loads of things we've all learned about booking clients in, about, you know, we book them in for December now, which we can do whilst we're locked down. But then also, let's look to get them booked in for January now already. Whether that has to have some incentive, I don't think it will. I think people still are very keen to to get their hair appointment, to get their beauty
Yeah.
appointment in their diaries. And, you know, we can talk about with clients whether that, you know, if lockdown happens again, let's just get your appointment in the diary so you're there, so we can make sure that you're not going to miss out. And that will hopefully give a little bit more confidence about our future income going into the new year.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, and likewise with staff, I think staff are probably nervous about how hard they had to work in July and how much that drained them both physically and mentally. And, you know, come back to us as the salon owner needing to be the leader here.
Yep.
And to really, you know, help reassure our staff that it isn't going to be as bad as July, because we're really used to PPE. And
also it won't be quite so hot. And I think
exactly
the PPE in the heat, we had those insane hot days. It's terrible. I think it might be a lot better in cooler climate, you know.
I think as well, you know, when we came back in July, everyone was so keen to get as many clients in as quickly as possible, which, you know, was a good thing to do and kept the clients happy as well. But I think now we've broken the back of that, we should be able to manage the clients coming in. You know, I don't think you may want to work some extra hours, but would you be doing that at Christmas anyway? A lot of salons do. So, you know, don't go crazy and make yourself ill over Christmas kind of thing. You know, make sure that everything is paced, it's thought out about, the utilization of time with your team is all worked out, and, you know, that everything's planned for and prepared for, so that it's back to being enjoyable. You know, that's one thing about us all, we love our jobs. So, you know, we need to try and go back to making what we do, you know, fun, enjoyable, rewarding. And
I think what you say is so important, Alison, because if you're feeling like that, you'll transmit that energy to the clients. If you're feeling miserable, stressed and can't cope, well, you're giving out that vibe, aren't you? And I think that's true. Can you just answer Neil's question, Gareth?
Absolutely. Thank you, Neil. So Neil has asked about furlough and workload in January. And it's a really good point, this, Neil. If you're going to be quieter in January, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be furloughing your staff. As long as the furlough scheme rules don't change, and there's obviously a caveat there because they seem to, stuff changes all the time, but as it stands today, you can furlough some or all of your staff for some or all of January, or February and March for that matter, as demand in the business changes.
That's good to know. That's a good question.
So it's a really good question from Neil. I think linked with that is also holiday.
Right.
So holiday allowance continues to accrue while staff are furloughed, and most people have got a lot of holiday to use now because they've not been able to go away this year, however much they may be desperate, as we all are, I think, to go away. So you can roll holiday over for 2 years, firstly.
Right.
Secondly, for those quieter times, you could ask staff to take holiday, because they were going to be furloughed. If they're on holiday, they get 100% of their pay instead. So you are then not losing them when maybe you want them more. You know, come Easter when we've all got a vaccine or whatever else it might be. But do bear in mind holidays, they are allowed to be rolled over. And that is going to give us all a headache in 2021. Because suddenly people will have like 40 days holiday, which, you know, is ridiculous, frankly. Unless I'm the one that's on holiday.
At the same time.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yes.
So,
you know.
Well, that's a great question. David says we're opening extra days looking at Christmas, but then taking a longer break over the Christmas and New Year than we usually do. So there'll be a little bit of extra time for the team to look forward to. So that's great that that's his strategy, if that helps anybody else with their thinking. I guess what this boils down to is using the time now to work out what's best for your individual salon, and more importantly, you know, your clients and your team. So take the time to work out how you're going to do that. I don't know if there's before I wrap up, if there's any other questions, we'd be thrilled to answer them. It's been lovely again to have so much positive feedback, and I'd like to thank the participants. Steve says, yeah, you know, it's really nice that we've got some great feedback. We're happy to do these webinars, and as Gareth says, and I'm sure Alison will join us and many of our other happy friends of GSG, but as Gareth said, I think the important thing is that we've noted is that things change all the time. This does seem to be a very grey area in terms of goalposts moving, you said. So, you know, just to reiterate, as I'm sure you will, Gareth, that we are here at the Good Salon Guide as before, to answer things. And thank you, Neil, for the it's just lovely to hear, isn't it, Gareth, more, you know, for us. And I'd like to thank Alison hugely, because she's always so quick to help us out. But it's lovely to think that we're serving a need and people actually value this, and I think that's great. So do you want to say anything to wrap up on this particular occasion, Alison? Obviously you're up in Scotland, so I know things are different up there, but generally, I mean, it's sad that this time we're a little bit more downbeat. What would you like to add before we go?
No, I think it's just a case of, you know, we're all in the same situation. And I think, you know, if we can help each other out, it's definitely something that we should be doing, and, you know, supporting each other. And, you know, we're a really strong, tough, resilient industry. Yeah. And you know, we're going to come back stronger, definitely.
Yeah, I think you say that, Alison, and I think hairdressing is renowned for, you could just see that on the socials and the platforms. People do look out for each other, and I think be kind. I know it's cliche, but now's not the time for the time for bitching and backbiting and scoring points. I think, you know, if there is any of that, it needs to be nipped in the bud, because if we're there for each other and we're kind, we will get through it. Gareth, what would you like to add?
I think I'd reiterate everything you both said, and simply add that, you know, I think now is the time for salon owners and managers to really lead, and to be positive, and pick up their teams, who definitely will be feeling down and low, having worked so hard over the past few months. And, you know, let's look after each other's mental health, and really we'll get through this. You know, there was really good news yesterday about this vaccine.
Brilliant news. Very positive.
Very positive. And, you know, that gives a bit of hope. And I think, you know, Caroline's just concluded by, and that's good. If it helps, she says, keeping in touch with us, seeing these webinars, chatting to you, Gareth, it helps keep her motivated. That's a great thing to hear, that if we can keep people going, and not just answer their questions, but, you know, give them a bit of a push in the right direction, then we're thrilled that, you know, that's something that's a real benefit. So thank you, Caroline, and we will continue to keep you motivated, I hope. Well, I'm going to wrap up unless anybody else has anything to add. And as ever, Alison, it's a delight.
Thank you.
So glamorous in your dusky, beautiful boudoir, and it's a tonic to see you. Gareth, thank you from everybody who is with Good Salon Guide for all the information and incredible knowledge about the financials. So, you know, and David says love to Eileen and Dawson, so that's nice. It's great help, and he's happy to help. So yeah, really nice camaraderie. But anyway, Gareth, your knowledge on the financial side is fantastic, so thanks for sharing that today.
Super. And likewise, Claire, thank you for all of your input and hosting. Pleasure. As ever, you know, anybody pick up the phone, and we're here to help. So thank you very much.
Can we just say, Gareth, that this has been recorded, hasn't it? So anybody want to watch should anybody want to watch it a second time, which I'd love, but I doubt. But for anybody, it is recorded, it is there. You might want to download it, let your team know if there's some things that are relevant to your team, or if you've got mates in the industry that you think are asking the questions about the finances particularly, then a lot of the information on questions that lots of folk will have are in this downloadable webinar. Right, good to see you